session is on mastering fintech innovation and partnerships. So those who are interested in fintech, this is the session that you have to listen to. And today we delve into the dynamic world of financial technology, where innovation and partnerships redefine the landscape. Our expert speaker is going to share insights on mastering the intricacies of fintech, exploring the latest trends and navigating strategic collaborations. So ladies and gentlemen, the keynote speaker of the session is Mr. Shyam Mohan, the Vice President of Fintech Product and Platform Strategy, Mastercard Dubai. And yes, he is an alumnus of NIT Kozhikode, so it is proud to have him back on this soil. He is a Kozhikodan, that's the best part. So Mr. Shyam Mohan is experienced in fintech and payment solutions with a diverse background in product strategy and market expansion. As I mentioned earlier, he holds a BTech from our very own NIT Calicut and an MBA, unfortunately from IIM Bangalore. And known for driving distribution through APIs at Mastercard, and previously led initiatives in prepaid sales and digital partnerships, and aviation enthusiast with a light sport aircraft license. Wow, that's impressive. So we have a pilot over here as well. So it is a great honor and pleasure to have Mr. Shyam Mohan for the keynote session.
Hi everyone. As was mentioned in the intro, I'm from Calicut, so it's always good to be back home. Always, good to come home to nice matti fry. So that's what I did for lunch. I did not have too much lunch from here. I just went home and had matti fry and came back. So yeah, I'm the last speaker for today. It's a tricky spot to be in when you are the last speaker, right? Sometimes you get overwhelmed by a large audience. Sometimes you feel that okay, you are going to be the last, so there is a sense of relief that comes in everybody's mind, saying that okay, with this, we are done with the day. But anyway, I think it's been a great event, well organized by everybody. To see such an event happen in Kerala, in Kozhikode, is an absolute pleasure. So we saw a range of topics today, right? From retail to other aspects of technology to AI, and how all of these evolutions have been happening. We also heard about how companies are being born out of smaller cities, and it's not just confined to the large tech centers that have been the key centers of innovation or growth of companies in the past. So I wanted to touch upon a topic that is close to my heart and that I'm involved in professionally, which is fintech. So when the boom started of technology evolution, especially after the 2008 financial crisis, we saw a significant change in the way people thought about banking and financial services. So people realized that you can't really be reliant on some a few set of large players to handle your money, and that's really when fintech emerged in the sense that we see today. The fact that banks were trusted to handle your finances and your money were kind of taken in a certain way, where consumer experience or the way customers were treated was being sacrificed. After the 2008 crisis, what we saw was technology enabling a new set of companies to grow that focused on the consumer experience of banking. So similar to how Amazon evolved as the next big thing in retail, we started seeing the emergence of digital banks, neobanks, and other fintech providers who really thought that there is a big area for us to innovate and build new capabilities in the way people do banking and financial services. And that's really where, for us as an organization in Mastercard, we started seeing the opportunity of how to partner with some of these startups, some of these fintechs, right? How can we help them grow? How can we get them the next set of customers? How can we take their technology and build it into a larger set of capability that is probably being developed by a bigger bank? So that's really where we started turning our attention towards how can we build better for startups and fintechs, and that's been the journey that I've had through my professional career. So just a lay of the land, it's still expected to grow into a significantly big opportunity. Fintech has grown. It's been, one of the biggest invested areas throughout the past few years. Obviously, with the funding window that happened over the past couple of years, things have been a little bit, slow and dry. But in spite of that, we still see a massive opportunity because the amount of innovation that technology can do in the financial sector is immense. And we've seen examples like that happen in India itself, right? With the growth of UPI and the way the landscape has changed in terms of how digital transactions are now being done on a day-to-day basis, even for small ticket payments. We've seen that trend emerge, we've seen that change, and that is still continuing to grow into a much bigger pool of opportunity. So for all those budding entrepreneurs here, for people who are thinking about how can we dip my feet into fintech, this should be a good starting point. And one thing which I feel a lot of great entrepreneurs think about is what is that big opportunity, right? And I've seen examples of this in my engagements with some of the startups. So a company that is listed here is Airwallex. So Airwallex is an Australian cross-border payments company. Their story is an interesting one. So we started working with them somewhere around 2016-17. They were founded by a couple of Chinese people who were in Australia who set up a coffee shop. When they set up a coffee shop, they realized that they had to import a lot of goods from China. So coffee cups, coffee itself, and everything to run a coffee shop, they had to import from China. And then they understood that, the payments that they were making, the cross-border money payment that they were sending from Australia to China to procure these goods, a lot of how do I say, pilferage was happening, or commissions were being charged for making these payments. So that's when they pivoted from starting a coffee shop into building a global cross-border e-commerce payment system. And the interesting thing about these founders of Airwallex was that they never set their sight into this one, pocket of opportunity of trade between China and Australia. From the get-go, they had this vision to build something global, right? And these are some of the interesting traits that we've seen when we've worked with some of the startups and fintechs that we partner with, on how the founders really think global, how the founders think, okay, this is, let's say, $1 trillion opportunity, I want to capture 5% of it, right? 10% of it. They never really think small. And as we think about new ecosystems emerging, new companies emerging from cities and towns like ours, I'm just highlighting the fact that never have a narrow vision, right? Always think big in terms of what the big opportunity is and go for it. And we've seen a lot of successes happen, and that's where the big bets have to be taken. That's where the returns are. So I'll just talk about a few themes that are emerging, and we've seen that in some of the past sessions here. In the fintech space also, in the banking and financial services space also, we are seeing consumer preferences changing. As I said earlier, banks used to be this trusted store of value, this place where I could park my money, and now the expectations from customers are different, right? They want to move in the digital world when it comes to their payment needs and the way they are conducting transactions and the way they are paying or the way they are getting paid. So we see that emerging and supported by the growth of technology, and we see a big disruption in the traditional payments business model. So Mastercard as a company has been in existence for 60 years, and for the majority of those 60 years we focused on just credit cards. Now with the landscape that has evolved, we are thinking about how can we look at open banking? How can we look at enabling new payment use cases with data? How can we look at embedding AI-based solutions into fraud prevention or customer support and some of the key use cases there? Right? So we see that disruption in business model that has happened. And everything is also centered around the customer and the consumer experience, because that's one thing that has emerged with the latest wave of digital technologies, that you are able to personalize experiences for consumers, right? And it's not just about buying things on e-commerce, it's about banking and financial services as well. So the customer centricity, the way we are thinking about how people should be enabled to pay or get paid is something that we are seeing in this space. And with that, we also saw the emergence of new types of players. So earlier we had the traditional banks, and the traditional banks are still wanting to compete, right? They know that the fintechs are eating a big slice of their cake, so they want to compete. And they are thinking about digital transformation experiences that they want to offer to their customers. And on the other side, we see a lot of fintechs and neobanks and other digital players emerging. So a good opportunity here, if you are thinking about building something in the fintech space, is the larger banks, the larger incumbents are looking for new technology. They are hungry for technology, right? And it's very difficult for such large institutions to build things on their own, and they seek to partner. So when you think about new opportunities, always keep this in mind, that you don't necessarily have to become the next Citibank or the next, SBI. You can think of them as your potential partners and build together, right? And that's really the driving force behind a lot of partnerships that we try to weave within Mastercard and within the broader fintech space, because that's where money is to be made. That's the big opportunity that everybody should be thinking about. So, we see new technologies emerging. I'm not going to go through each of them. I just want to touch upon three things, right? So recently we published a report on what are the future signals that impact banking and financial services. And three things that came out from the study that we did. One is generative AI. We've seen that, we've spoken about it, we've heard that. It's here to stay, and it's here to, really change the way people interact. The second is computing, right? So with faster computing, with new chip technologies emerging, we are seeing the ability to do new, new things, build new capabilities emerging. And the third one is data. So over the past few years, the amount of data that the overall ecosystem has harnessed is immense, right? And we are able to do a lot more with data when it comes to personalization, when it comes to finding the best decision for the next financial opportunity that you want to unlock. So these are three emerging themes or trends that we think are here to stay: generative AI, better computing, and then availability of data. And then it all boils down to who is able to utilize all of these capabilities in the right way that your customers or end users would need, and make it available faster, better in the way that they need it, right? So that's something which I also wanted to highlight in terms of what technologies are we seeing as the next emerging frontiers. So I'll skip through some of these because I've spoken about them, and then. For us, within Mastercard, we always are eager to see new technologies emerge. We have a lot of in-house resources that think about what next, but we also understand that we can't be living in a walled garden thinking about the fact that, okay, whatever we have is good enough. We are always hungry to see new startups. We are always hungry to see new fintechs, right? And there are many ways that we do it. One of the roles that I did previously was I was leading the startup engagement program for Middle East Africa. And I was just amazed by the breadth of technologies that that I saw. And you could think about different ways in which new capabilities can be built which support the financial ecosystem. And one example that I wanted to highlight is, in Mastercard, we built a product called Farmers Network, Mastercard Farmers Network. This was primarily launched in Africa, where we wanted to help farmers become financially included. So they were one of the most excluded segments from the financial mainstream. The challenge was they don't really have any digitized set of records to help them get a loan for buying a tractor or for buying pesticides or whatever, right? So they were always kept out of the financial mainstream because there was nothing that was digitally available. So we launched this product called Mastercard Farmers Network to support them, right? To give them access to some form of banking that they can use, which will help them build digital records. And a company that I worked with in Ghana and Rwanda, what they did was, the company's name is MFarmPay. So what they did was, they would work with the European Space Agency and use satellites to map the field of produce that these farmers have, right? They would map weather patterns. They would map climate changes. So all of these became relevant data, and then they would send people on the field to understand what each of those farmers are doing, right? What is a crop they are producing? How have they done so far this year, last year, right? So all of those information, and created this repository of relevant information. So a farmer would then go to a bank and say, here is my, pseudo credit profile, right? So I've been a good farmer for the past 5 years. I know that for the next 2 years, the weather is going to favor what I want to do, right? The climate environment is favorable. So please give me a loan to buy a tractor, right? Or to buy something that is needed as farm inputs. And we saw a massive change in the way banks were thinking about these people. So people who were financially excluded now started becoming empowered to get a loan or to do something, that they really wanted to, but they couldn't because of capital constraints. So we saw all of these innovations, again, emerging in remotest of corners of the world, right? By startups who probably have lived through the pain, either, through their family members or somebody that they know, and understood that this is a dire need that needs to be addressed. So for us, in terms of opportunity, as I was mentioning earlier, it's all about how can we collaborate? How can we find that big, next big thing, and then build the pillars around the needs of the customers and find the partners that we can work with in order to make it happen. So that's basically what I wanted to convey in terms of the fintech ecosystem growth and what we are seeing as emerging. And as I said, right, for me, I see a lot of opportunities that are emerging even in the remotest of corners. So there's nothing stopping any of us here from thinking about what can be done in the fintech space, right? And you probably all know that fintech is definitely an opportunity where a lot of people get impacted, their lives can be improved, and also it is one space where you can marry technology with some of the incumbent solutions that are out there to make something even more powerful, right? So you don't really need to start from scratch or invent something from zero. There are still tons of opportunity that can be unlocked through some of these collaborative partnerships. With that, I think I'll end my talk, and then happy to take any questions if you may have.
You just mentioned that the fintech is surging or galloping after the 2008 financial crisis. And also you just mentioned about the African Ugandan farmers case where they are seeking the fintech help. So how far, to what extent the fintech can help to decipher markets for a farmer?
So, as I said, the main pain point that a farmer faces today, right, when it comes to financial services is they don't have a credit score or they don't have any credit history, right? So we are looking at multiple capabilities. What I just mentioned was one of the aspects. How can the farmer get a credit score that is relevant, that a bank can use to decide whether this farmer is credit worthy or not, right? That's just one of the aspects. Okay. Then there is this aspect of how can they receive money, right? We see in the entire, farm to fork supply chain, there is a lot of pilferage that happen with intermediaries that take a cut for providing little value. So we see opportunities where these farmers can directly benefit from the financial inclusion solutions by having access to a bank account, so that they can get money coming in directly to their account rather than through some intermediary who takes a cut for, probably not much that they do. We are actually bringing the farmer closer to the actual market where they are able to trade their goods and cutting out the intermediaries. And that's another aspect of, fintech or financial inclusion that we see, which can benefit a lot of these communities which are otherwise excluded from the mainstream.
The farmer produce is going to be affected by climate change. How can a bank give loans to him?
Correct. So the question is, how do you assess the impact, right? Okay. We know climate change is happening. We know, people are being impacted by it. But erstwhile or previously, what used to happen was the banks would have absolutely no idea on what the impact of climate would be on a particular farmer. Okay. Now, what this company that I mentioned is doing is they work with, as I said, the European Space Agency, right? They work with people on ground. They work with other ecosystem participants to find out what that impact could be, right? Sure. So then the bank can decide, not blindly, but on the basis of facts, whether this is going to be a positive impact or a negative impact, and then take appropriate action, right? So that's basically what is happening here.
Okay. What about the trustworthiness of fintech? Because a lot of companies are emerging and they are vanishing, just like there is a Gresham's law. Counterfeits drive out originals. So what is your take on it?
So see, that trend you see in any industry, and it's not just in fintech, right? And when you think about fintechs, or generally when you think about startups, there are many that are bound to fail. But does that stop people from experimenting? Sure, absolutely not, right? And that is a philosophy that we also pursue. Okay. We know if you do 10 things, one might succeed, 9 might not, but that one success is big enough to make sure, that it's worth the risk that is being taken.
Excellent.
Hi, sir. So I have two questions. Number one being, Mastercard is a very big company. It's globally scaled and everything. How much are you affected by local competitions, per se, the UPI, etc., etc.? I don't know if it's good for you or bad for you. I don't know. Like, number one. Number two, how, I think you're predominantly based in UAE. So, yeah, Dubai, right? So, how likely is UAE to adopt a technology like UPI? Is
sure.
it near or far? Yeah.
Yep. So, I'll take your first question first, right? So, in terms of whether companies like Mastercard are going to be impacted, well, there is a positive and negative side to it. So, is it competitive? If you think about it in terms of, whether people are not using cards and they are using Google Pay, for instance, that is competitive. But what we seek is to find opportunities with competition that is emerging. And this has been our strategy for a long time. So what we call this is localization. Mastercard is a global company, right? So the real strength is in the global network that we have created. The fact that you can take a card issued by SBI here, go to Dubai and buy a coffee from Starbucks, that's the strength of the network that we have created over the past 60 years. But localization is a theme that we are seeing emerging in multiple markets. India is one. We've seen it in Russia. China has always had China Union Pay, which was a domestic scheme that we were not really able to play a part in. But our approach is beyond just the method of payment. We also offer a lot of the underlying technology. So Mastercard, we are a payment technology company. We have data analytics solutions. We have cybersecurity and fraud prevention solutions. So with a lot of these emerging so-called competitors, we don't consider them as a competitor and not talk to them or shut them out. We look for where are the areas of collaboration where we can offer them something that can benefit in the entire ecosystem developing. Because in the end, for us, it's all about how can you minimize cash, how can you move more transactions digitally, right? So whether you move transactions digitally through us using a card or using UPI, as long as we are able to see that and build new capabilities or offer solutions, let's say to prevent fraud or to provide better personalized experiences to you as an end consumer, that's a win for us, right? So that's the answer to the first question. So second, in terms of the partnership with UAE, absolutely yes. So I think a few weeks back, our PM was in UAE, and then he inaugurated the launch of J1 card, which is using RuPay. So it's a local UAE issued card, similar to what is here, similar to RuPay, but it uses the platform of RuPay, right? And then he also announced, this was I think last year, the partnership between UPI and IPP, which is an instant payments platform that is being launched in the UAE. So a lot of these collaborations are happening across markets. We see that trend emerging. And again, for us, anything that moves the needle, anything that moves the world forward in terms of digitizing the way people pay is a win for us.